Hello everyone. My name's Oliver and I'm very pleased to be here today representing the National Churches Trust. So I'm going to be explaining some of what we do and how we're able to help your church, hopefully. But first I'm going to start with a little bit about our organisation. So with the National Churches Trust, we want to keep churches open and in use for generations to come. Churches are, really historically important buildings that have done a lot of good for communities over many, many centuries. And we want to keep that work happening by supporting the buildings in which that takes place. So we're a national charity, we're UK-wide, and we represent all denominations of Christianity. So we support churches, chapels, meeting houses, and cathedrals. Some of our recent achievements include Every Church Counts. That's a 6-point plan. It's a bit like a manifesto that we have to save UK church buildings, and we launched that in the House of Lords at the beginning of 2024. We've also got our House of Good research stream. The sort of original study of this showed that the value of church buildings as a social sort of asset is worth around £55 billion a year across the UK. More recently, we undertook the House of Good Health research, and that showed that churches provide £8.4 billion of cost relief to the NHS each year. We're also delivering National Lottery Heritage Fund projects. Our Cherish project is taking place across the northwest of England, as well as Wales and Scotland, and our Treasure Island project is Northern Ireland specific. So those are providing on-the-ground support and help for churches, as well as sort of ring-fenced grants, pots for those. And in 2024, we made 312 grants that totaled £2.8 million to churches. So our grants programmes have two streams at the moment for the sort of general pots that sit outside of those specialist projects. The medium grants are awarded up to £10,000. They cover things like project development up to REBA stage 1, as well as essential repairs that are costed, that's total project costs, up to £80,000. Our large grant scheme offers awards of up to £50,000. £50,000 grant awards are relatively rare, so the typical value is more likely to be around £30,000 or £40,000. And those are to cover urgent structural repairs where the project costs are over £80,000, as well as new facilities projects that total over £30,000. So what we find is that a lot of the applications that we get in are ineligible at the outset. We're not able to fund heating, lighting, or AV equipment, work to fixtures and fittings, so that's sort of smaller things inside a church like the clock. We can't fund restoration of decorative features either, anything outside of the church building that's in the churchyard, or anything that's a separate structure. So when you come to apply, you'll be met with a sort of eligibility quiz. So just to run through some of the things that applications need to sort of cover, it needs to be a church that's located within the UK, of course. It needs to have originally been built as a place of worship more than 30 years ago and open for regular public worship. It needs to have its doors open or sort of able to be open at least 100 days a year. That can be a sort of future thing once a project's been completed, but it is, a really important part of what we believe, makes an eligible application and, an important thing for churches to be doing. The work can't have started on the project yet, and you'll have to have raised at least 50% of the funding before getting your application in. We also look for projects that are being led by qualified professionals with conservation accreditation if it's taking place at a listed building. And obviously necessary permissions for work to take place also have to be in place. So to come back to our medium grant scheme, these awards are made up to £10,000. So these can cover project development, as I've said. For example, this could include feasibility studies, option appraisals, or detailed reports to understand an issue, scoping out future work. You'll need 2 quotes and 50% of funds ready for this to take place, and support from a lead professional, and again, conservation accredited if it's a listed building, that will also help your application even if you're not listed building. And there are 3 decision rounds for this scheme that take place each year. The medium grants also can be used for repairs projects. So these are projects where the total cost is up to and including £80,000 a year. £80,000. This can include roof repairs, masonry repairs, rainwater goods, and ideally these would have been identified within a quinquennial or 5-year inspection survey. You'll need permissions for the work to take place, as well as 2 quotes from sort of professionals, as well as 50% of funds in place again, and a conservation accredited lead professional. And again, these are 3 decisions take place throughout the year. Our large grants award up to £50,000. These can be to tackle urgent structural repair projects, where the project costs are over £80,000, or facilities projects such as kitchens, accessible toilets, where project costs are over £30,000. And the large grants is a 2-stage process. So you'll get your application in, it'll be looked at as a stage 1, then you'll be invited to submit a sort of stage 2 application with a bit more detail and a bit more explanation of the project. You'll need your costs in place, as well as funding to 50%, permissions to do the work, conservation professional working on it if your church is listed, and again we have 3 rounds for this each year. We do also award some grants on behalf of other funders. So our Wolfson Foundation grants are the sort of biggest part of this. So those cover essential fabric repairs for grade 1 or grade 2 star listed churches. And these are typically given in addition to grants that we've given in the medium or large programs. So for example, if you've applied for a large grant for £50,000, you might end up with £40,000 from us and £10,000 from the Wolfson Foundation. We also recommend to other funders, and of course there's the listed places of worship grant scheme, which is currently sort of under review and has only been extended to March next year, but it's a tremendous, as it stands, tremendous sort of branch of funding that can really help projects to get carried out. So the application process begins on our website. We've got guidance notes on there that run through all of the sort of eligibility criteria and things that you might need to consider before submitting your application. We really do ask that people read through these sort of properly and in detail before submitting their application, so that you're not submitting anything that's going to be ineligible. It saves everyone time to avoid having to go back and forth asking for extra bits of information. You can then find our online portal through our website, and through there you can submit all the information that you need to on there, and that will be then sent through to our team to look at. So internally that's assessed by our staff. They look at the sort of merits of each project in turn, and then for these programs they go through to a grants committee that's made up of sort of independent experts. So those are architects, conservation professionals, people with experience in all sorts of sectors as well. And so after that, you can expect a formal decision letter to come through to you by email. So some top tips on how you can make sure that you best place yourself to get some funding. The first one, of course, is to apply on time. We have three rounds a year, as I say, so you might have to wait 4 months or up to 4 months if you don't get it in time, and we can't sort of accept anything that's late. So do keep an eye on when the deadlines are. Ask somebody else to look at the application. I think this is true in many sort of areas of written things that people do, is that it can be really easy to narrow your focus when you're writing something yourself, not think about necessarily the things that people do and don't know about your project. So having a sort of independent person just look before you submit it can help to avoid any common pitfalls with not sort of making the context of your explanations clear. Your lead professional can be a really helpful person to do that. They'll be probably quite experienced with submitting applications or supporting them. They'll be able to help with really explaining clearly what the problem is, what the impact would be, and how the solution is going to sort of address that. Make sure to get your figures clear. That's a really important one. Again, it's something that we have people looking at these internally, so it's really important that it's easy for them to understand, especially when it comes to cost figures, because that can obviously determine whether an application is eligible or not. Submit all required documentation. Again, it's something that our officers need when they're assessing an application. It saves everyone time if they have everything they need to hand. If there's a huge number of applications, then it's going to benefit you to make sure that nobody's having to ask you to submit something that you've just left off or by mistake or haven't outlined clearly already. Lead with the need, make it really clear in your application why the funding's needed. These programs are quite competitive, but we do want to help. So make sure you really outline what it is that you need the funding for and how it's going to make a difference for your church and for your community. It's important as well to celebrate your successes. We really like to hear about how your project's getting along to date, whether you've done some really great fundraising and engaged the community, or whether you've done sort of previous projects that have worked out really well. It will help your application if you're able to sort of explain those with clarity and go into detail as well. Tell us exactly what it is, exactly what the work is that you're going to do, what it will look like, what the resources you'll need are, and the sort of timelines and things like that. The more detail that you go into, the stronger your application will be, and the more likely you are to get funding. So the next deadlines that you can expect for the large grants at stage 1 is the 1st of July this year, and for the medium programme it's the 12th of August. We do also have wider support as well. On our website you can find maintenance advice. So these include maintenance plan templates as well as videos to help you make sure that you're doing everything in the right way. A maintenance plan is something that we always look for in an application, so that's something that you can find help with on our website. We also run free training almost every month. I think in May we've got about 6 sessions, so do check that out. That can range from anything from fundraising to our grants programs as well. We have training from ecclesiastical insurance about keeping your building safe, all sorts of things. So I'd really recommend just checking that out and seeing what's coming up. We've also got a database of funding and support organisations, so you can find other funders that might be able to help with things that we're not able to fund, or that can sort of be, or can help us sort of in addition to us, as well as support organisations. So we have a database on our website of sort of church or construction professionals and all sorts of organisations that are able to carry out actual work. So you can look at that. Some of them are specific to local areas. So take a look at the Specialist Skills Directory for that. We also have a 5-point guide to developing your project. So this is slightly more broader scope than the grants process and looks at sort of beginning to end type, beginning to end of a whole project. And as I say, you can find all of this on our website. There's the link to the maintenance advice there, but everything else should be able to find easily findable as well across the site. And you can also always get in touch with us. We've got a small team, we're very friendly. For general inquiries, you can email hello@nationalchurchestrust.org. For grants specifically, we've got a grants@nationalchurchestrust.org inbox, where we've got people monitoring that at all times of day, so that can be a really helpful one as well. And my colleague Sarah is our sort of expert in tourism and engagement, so if you have questions about any of that and the National Church Awards as well, then you can get in touch with her, and that's Sarah Crossland at nationalchurchestrust.org. So that's my whole presentation that I wanted to run through. If anyone has any questions at all about our grant funding programs, then I'd be very happy to take any.